Captain Laura Nelson sat in her command chair on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon. The stars shone bright on the main screen. Her ship had traveled farther than any human vessel before it. They were exploring the edges of the Orion arm, far from Earth and its colonies. Laura was proud of her crew and their mission. They were the pioneers, the first humans to venture this deep into space. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Communications Officer Diane Foster. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "It's not a natural signal." Laura sat up straight. "Can you tell what it is?" "It's structured. Too regular for cosmic noise." Diane's eyes were wide. "Captain, I think it's artificial." The bridge went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. After centuries of searching the stars and wondering, if humans were alone in the universe, they might have found the answer. Science Officer Alan Wright rushed to Diane's station. He looked at her readings with excitement. "She's right, Captain, this is definitely not natural. The pattern repeats every 12.7 seconds. "Put it on speakers," Laura ordered. A strange sound filled the bridge. It was like nothing any of them had heard before. It had a rhythm, a purpose. "Send our standard greeting message," Laura said. It was the protocol for possible first contact situations, though no one had ever needed to use it before. Diane sent the message. Everyone waited, barely, breathing. Just 3 minutes later, the response came. The main screen flickered and showed an image that made the entire crew gasp. An alien face stared back at them. It had blue skin that seemed almost transparent. Its eyes were large and completely black. It had no nose, just small breathing holes, and its mouth was a thin line. "Greetings, humans of the vessel Horizon," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zuckatal of the Arcturian hegemony, representing the Galactic Coalition." Laura stood up slowly. Her training had prepared her for many things, but not for this moment. Still, she kept her voice steady. "I am Captain Laura Nelson of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We come in peace." The alien made a gesture that might have been a nod. "We have been watching your species for some time, Captain Nelson. Your journey to this part of space has triggered our protocols for first contact." Laura exchanged looks with her officers. They had been watched? For how long? "We wish to formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Coalition," the alien continued. "This is an honor, Ambassador," Laura replied carefully. She didn't want to seem too eager or too suspicious. "But I'm curious. Why now? And why did you choose our ship specifically?" Something changed in the alien's posture. "Your vessel ventured farther than any human ship before it. We deemed it time to make contact before you encountered certain other species unprepared." That sounded like a warning. Laura noted it for later. Security Chief Greg Bennett moved closer to the captain. He kept one hand near his weapon. Not threatening, but ready. He was doing his job, being careful. Diane leaned toward Laura. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from their ship. Nothing threatening, but definitely strange." "What kind of readings?" Laura whispered. "Power levels far beyond anything we have, and some kind of scanning beam is passing over our hull." Laura nodded slightly. "Ambassador, on behalf of humanity, we accept your invitation to learn more about this coalition. We would be honored to visit your vessel to discuss terms." "Excellent," Zuckatal responded. "Our ship will send a transport shuttle to your docking bay. You may bring a small team. However, we must issue one warning. The coalition has protocols. There are species considered too dangerous for unrestricted interstellar travel. We will need to assess humanity's classification." Laura's smile didn't waver, but she felt uneasy. "Classification?" "Yes, all new species are evaluated. There are 3 categories: protected, provisional, and..." The alien paused. "Restricted, for everyone's safety." The screen went dark. The alien had ended the transmission without waiting for a response. "Well, that was interesting," Laura said, trying to keep the mood light. "Senior officers' meeting room now." In the privacy of the meeting room, the 4 senior officers shared their thoughts. "This is incredible," Alan said, his eyes bright with excitement. Actual aliens. A whole coalition of species. Or it's a trap, Greg said, always the cautious one. They admitted they've been watching us for how long? And what's this about classifying species as dangerous? They seemed peaceful, Diane added. But those energy readings were like nothing I've ever seen. Their technology is way beyond ours. Laura, listen to them all. Whatever their intentions, this is first contact. It's what we've been hoping for. But we'll be careful. She looked at each of them. Here's the plan. The four of us will go to their ship. Standard protocol. We'll be armed but non-threatening. Greg, I want you to prepare the security team in case something goes wrong. Yes, Captain. Greg nodded. Alan, bring all our scientific equipment. Record everything. With pleasure. Alan smiled. Diane, stay in constant communication with the ship. If we lose contact for more than 10 minutes, Acting Captain Rodriguez has orders to attempt rescue, then retreat if necessary. They all understood the risks. They were venturing into the unknown. But this was why they had joined the exploration service, to discover new worlds, new life. As they prepared for the meeting, Laura looked out of the viewport at the alien ship that had just become visible. It was huge, at least 5 times the size of the horizon. Its design was unlike anything humans had created, all curved lines and strange angles that seemed to bend light around them. Let's hope we make a good impression, she said quietly to herself. Being labeled as restricted before we even start exploring the galaxy would be a terrible beginning to our interstellar relations. Little did she know that the Galactic Coalition had already made its assessment of humanity, and their conclusion would shock the entire galaxy. The alien shuttle docked with the horizon with a soft hiss. The door opened, revealing a corridor of shimmering blue light. Captain Laura Nelson took a deep breath and led her team forward. Science Officer Alan Wright followed closely, his eyes wide with wonder. Communications Officer Diane Foster walked next, recording everything with her devices. Security Chief Greg Bennett came last, alert and watchful. The inside of the shuttle was larger than it looked from outside. The seats were shaped for bodies not quite like human ones. There were no pilots. The shuttle moved on its own. Amazing, Alan whispered. Their technology must be centuries ahead of ours. Stay sharp, Laura reminded them. Remember, we represent all of humanity now. The journey to the alien ship took only minutes. When the shuttle doors opened again, they stepped into a vast docking bay. Dozens of strange ships sat in neat rows. Some looked like giant insects. Others were just balls of light. The humans felt very small. Ambassador Zucatal waited for them. Up close, the alien was taller than any human, nearly 7 feet in height. Its blue skin seemed to glow from within. Welcome aboard the Nexus, the ambassador said. This is one of our diplomatic vessels. Thank you for having us, Laura replied. She tried to sound confident. We are honored to be the first humans to visit an alien ship. Please follow me, Zucatal said. The assessment council is waiting. The humans followed the ambassador through corridors of what looked like living crystal. The walls pulsed with soft light. Other aliens moved about. Some looked almost human with 2 arms and legs. Others had many limbs or floated in the air without touching the ground. The coalition comprises over 350 sentient species from across this galactic quadrant, Zucatal explained. We have maintained peace for over 12,000 of your Earth years. That's remarkable, Alan said, making notes on his tablet. Earth nations can barely maintain peace for a decade. Laura noticed a quick look pass between 2 aliens. Was that concern? How does the coalition work? Diane asked. Is it like a government? It is more complex than that, Zucatal replied. We have shared laws, trade, and defense. Each species governs itself but must follow coalition rules for interstellar conduct. They entered a large round room. Several aliens sat around a curved table. They looked very different from each other. One had scales like a reptile but shimmered with rainbow colors. Another seemed made of moving light. A third had 5 eyes that blinked at different times. The assessment council, Zucatal announced. They will determine humanity's classification within the coalition. Laura noticed small floating devices in the corners of the room. What are those? She whispered to Greg. Security drones, I think, he replied quietly. His hand stayed near his weapon. The reptile-like alien spoke first. We have studied your history extensively. No other species in the coalition has developed as rapidly as humans. The light being added, your technological advancement curve is unprecedented. From primitive flight to rudimentary space travel in less than a century. Laura felt proud. Thank you. Humanity has always been driven to explore and innovate. That is precisely our concern, said the five-eyed alien. Your species seems constantly driven by conflict. You advance most rapidly during periods of war or competition. Greg tensed beside Laura, but she touched his arm gently, warning him to stay calm. With respect, Laura replied. Those same traits have allowed us to overcome many challenges. We've united our planet and reached for the stars. The council members looked at each other, communicating somehow without speaking. We have studied your entertainment, the reptile alien said. Your stories, your movies and books. Many feature humans fighting against alien invaders, defeating more advanced species through what you call human spirit. Laura smiled. Those are just stories. Fiction. Are they? Asked the light being. Or do they reflect human nature? Your desire to be the strongest even against impossible odds? We admire determination, Laura said carefully. But we also value peace and cooperation. Yet your history shows otherwise, said the five-eyed alien. Your most peaceful periods come after your most terrible wars. You cooperate best when facing common enemies. Laura didn't know how to respond to that. It was partly true. We have one final test before making our decision, the reptile alien said. A simulation that will help us understand how humans respond to certain scenarios. What kind of scenarios? Greg asked, his voice tense. Nothing to worry about, Zikatal assured them. Simply a standard procedure for all new species. The council led them to another room. It held 4 chairs with strange headsets above them. These will connect to your minds, Zikatal explained. You will experience realistic situations. Your responses will be monitored. Is it safe? Alan asked, looking at the alien technology with both fear and wonder. Completely safe, the ambassador said. The simulation affects only your perceptions, not your physical body. Laura looked at her team. They all nodded. They had come too far to turn back now. We'll do it, she said. As they sat in the chairs, strange helmets lowered onto their heads. Laura felt a tingling sensation. Then the room around her faded away. She found herself standing on an alien planet. The sky was amber-colored with 2 suns. The plants were deep purple. Everything looked real, but Laura knew it wasn't. A voice spoke in her mind. Scenario 1, resource scarcity. The scene changed. Now she saw a small village of aliens. They looked tired and hungry. Their crops were dying in dry fields. Your human colony and their village both need water from the same river, the voice said. There is not enough for both. What do you do? 3 options appeared in her mind. Take all the water for humans, share the water equally, or find new technology to create more water. Laura thought carefully. Taking all the water would help her people but harm the aliens. Sharing might not be enough for either group. Finding new technology would take time they might not have. She decided to combine options, share water now while working on technology for more water later. The scene changed again and again. Each time Laura faced difficult choices, meeting dangerous new aliens, dealing with moral problems about technology, solving conflicts between different groups. In the final test, she found herself on a spaceship bridge. Enemy ships surrounded. Her vessel. They demand you surrender, the voice said. If you give up, your crew will become slaves. If you fight, you will likely be destroyed. What do you do? But Laura didn't choose either option. Instead, she tried to think of other ways, using the environment to escape, sending secret messages to allies, finding weaknesses in the enemy ships. Suddenly, the simulation ended. Laura gasped as she returned to reality. The alien room came back into focus. Her team members were also waking up, looking confused. That was intense, Greg said, rubbing his temples. The council members were staring at them with strange expressions. Is something wrong? Laura asked. Not wrong, Zikatal said slowly. Unexpected. Your responses were not what we predicted, especially yours, Captain Nelson. What do you mean? Most species make predictable choices, the reptile alien explained. You did not. You constantly looked for other options beyond what was offered. The five-eyed alien leaned forward. Captain, in the final scenario, if all your creative ideas failed, what would you have done? Laura met the alien's gaze. I would have fought, even against impossible odds. The council members looked at each other again. Laura was sure she saw concern in their reactions. Why? Asked the light being. When you knew you would lose? Because humans don't accept no-win scenarios, she replied simply. We changed the rules. Now Laura was certain the aliens were worried. Something about human nature scared them, and she was about to find out why. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Laura and her team stood facing the alien council, who were still disturbed by the results of the simulation. We need time to discuss these results, the reptile alien said finally. Please wait in the adjoining chamber. Food and refreshment suitable for humans have been provided. The human team was led to a smaller room with a view of space through a large window. The stars looked different from this part of the galaxy. A table held various foods and drinks. Should we eat any of this? Greg asked quietly, eyeing the colorful items suspiciously. Alan scanned the food with his device. Seems safe. No toxins our sensors can detect. They wouldn't poison us after going to all this trouble to assess us, Laura reasoned. Taking a small purple fruit, she bit into it cautiously. It's sweet, like a mix of strawberry and orange. While they ate, they discussed what had happened. Did anyone else notice how surprised they were by our test responses? Diane asked. Alan nodded. They clearly expected us to make different choices. I don't like how concerned they looked, Greg added. Almost afraid. Afraid of us? Diane laughed. Their ship could probably destroy the horizon with one shot. Laura looked out at the stars. Technology isn't everything. They said humans advance faster than any species they've seen. Maybe they're worried about what we'll become, not what we are now. After an hour, Zikatal returned. The ambassador seemed more formal than before. The council will see you now. They returned to the council chamber. The aliens watched them with new intensity. The reptile alien spoke first. We have reviewed the simulation data and compared it with our studies of human history. We have reached a consensus about humanity's classification. Laura stood tall. We're ready to hear it. The light being flickered rapidly. Before we proceed, we must explain something that has not been fully clear. The classification system is not primarily about privilege or membership status. Then what is it about? Alan asked. Safety, the five-eyed alien said bluntly. The safety of all species in the galaxy. Laura felt a chill. Are you saying humanity is dangerous? All species have the potential for both creation and destruction, Zakatal said carefully. Classifications help us manage risk. Protected species are vulnerable and need coalition protection. Provisional species show moderate risk factors but are generally stable. And restricted? Greg asked, his posture becoming defensive, the light being dimmed slightly. Restricted species have shown characteristics that could threaten galactic peace if left unchecked. Such as? Laura pressed. Excessive aggression, unpredictable innovation, resistance to authority, willingness to take extreme risks, and rapid technological advancement, Ziktal listed. The combination is extremely rare. The reptile alien rose to its full height. Based on our assessment, humanity is classified as a Category 1 restricted species. A shocked silence fell over the human team. Category 1? Diane finally asked. I assume that's the lowest restriction level? The council members exchanged nervous glances. No, Zikatal said quietly. It is the highest. That's ridiculous, Greg protested. We've barely left our own solar system. It is not what humans have done, explained the five-eyed alien. It is what you would do if threatened or challenged. No species in coalition history has shown your exact mix of traits. Laura stepped forward. This seems deeply unfair. You're restricting us based on what we might do, not what we've actually done. The simulations were very clear, the reptile said firmly. When faced with impossible odds, humans become most dangerous. You do not accept defeat. You do not surrender. You change the rules. And your history shows you advance most rapidly during existential threats. That's called survival, Laura argued. Exactly, Zikatal replied, with something like respect in its voice. No species we have encountered survives quite like humans do. The light being pulsed rapidly. There is more they should know. Zikatal hesitated, then nodded. The Coalition has been monitoring Earth for centuries. We picked up your radio signals, studied your stories, your wars, your quick technological progress. First contact was not by chance. What do you mean? Laura asked, growing suspicious. The Coalition did not reach out to welcome humanity, the reptile said bluntly. We reached out to contain you. Greg's hand moved to his weapon. Laura signaled him to stay calm. Contain us? How exactly? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Standard. Protocol for Category 1 species is isolation, the five-eyed alien explained. Your solar system would be quarantined until your species either evolved beyond dangerous tendencies or what? Alan asked when the alien didn't finish. Or self-destructed, Zikatal said softly. Laura felt anger rising in her chest. So, you plan to fence us in and wait for us to kill ourselves off? That was the initial recommendation, the reptile admitted. But your simulation results were so unusual that we developed an alternative proposal. The aliens displayed a star map highlighting dozens of systems along the edge of the galaxy. This region has been fought over for centuries, the light being explained, by a species outside our coalition, the Vral. They are aggressive, ruthless, and technologically advanced. We have lost 17 worlds to them in the past 100 years, the reptile added. Our traditional approaches have failed. Laura studied the map, beginning to understand. You want us to fight your war. Not our war, Zekatal corrected. A partnership. We propose human colonies in these frontier regions, with full coalition technological support. You're creating a buffer zone, Greg said, recognizing the military strategy. Using us as shields. As defenders, the ambassador countered, with resources and technology centuries beyond what humanity could develop alone. The human team exchanged looks of disbelief. Let me get this straight, Laura said, trying to control her anger. We're too dangerous to join your coalition properly, but useful enough to deploy against your enemies? You misunderstand, the five-eyed counselor said. We fear your potential, yes, but we also respect it. The qualities that make humans dangerous, adaptability, creativity, determination, are exactly what the Vrel cannot counter. The coalition has survived for thousands of years through careful balance and predictability, Zikatal explained. The Vral exploit this predictability. They cannot exploit what they cannot predict. And humans are unpredictable, Laura concluded. Extremely so, the ambassador confirmed. Laura gathered her team for a private huddle. They whispered intensely for several minutes before turning back to the council. We'll take your proposal to Earth's governments, Laura announced. But with conditions. We want full technology sharing, not just handouts. We want representation in coalition decisions that affect human interests. And we want our classification reviewed after peaceful cooperation is proven. The counselors conferred briefly. These terms are acceptable, the reptile finally stated, with proper safeguards. As they worked out preliminary details, Laura noticed something new in the alien's manner. Not just caution, but a hint of respect. Perhaps even a touch of fear. They had classified humans as the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But they had also revealed something else. They needed what made humans dangerous, and that gave humanity leverage in a vast universe they were just beginning to understand. 3 days had passed since the humans learned their classification. They remained on the alien ship, while both sides worked out details of the agreement. Laura and her team had been given comfortable rooms and freedom to explore certain areas of the massive vessel. Alan spent most of his time in the ship's knowledge center, learning about the different alien species and coalition technology. Diane studied alien languages and communication systems. Greg quietly mapped the ship's layout and security measures just in case. Laura split her time between all 3 activities while also meeting with Zikatal to discuss the partnership terms. Today, Laura sat with Zikatal in an observation deck, overlooking a vast garden filled with plants from dozens of worlds. The colors and shapes were unlike anything on Earth. Trees with blue leaves, flowers that moved on their own, and glowing moss that covered rock formations. Your team has adapted quickly to life aboard our ship, Zikatal noted. Most species experience more difficulty. Humans are good at adapting, Laura replied. It's one of our strengths. And one of the reasons for your classification, the ambassador reminded her. Your ability to adjust to new situations is remarkable. Your officer Wright has learned more about our systems in 3 days than some species learn in a year, Laura smiled with pride. Alan has always been a quick study. Zikatal's expression changed slightly. There is something I wish to show you, something that might help you understand our caution about humanity. The alien led Laura to a secure area they hadn't been allowed to visit before. After passing through several security checkpoints, they entered a room with a large screen covering one wall. This is historical footage from our first encounter with the Vral 107 years ago, Zikatal explained. The screen activated, showing a peaceful-looking world with 2 moons. Then ships appeared, sleek, black vessels with red energy flowing across their hulls. The footage showed the attack from both space and ground perspectives. The Vral ships were ruthlessly efficient, destroying defenses before landing troops. The Vral themselves were tall, muscular beings with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no visible eyes, just a series of sensing organs around their heads. They moved with terrifying speed and purpose. This was Nalara, a peaceful agricultural world, Zikatal said quietly. Population 12 million. The Vral took it in less than 1 day. Laura watched in horror as the alien forces overwhelmed the planet's defenders. The coalition forces fought bravely, but were outmatched. Why are you showing me this? She asked. So you understand what humanity would face in the border regions, Zikatal replied. The Vral are not like us. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They expand, consume resources, and move on. They sound like monsters. No, they are simply different. They evolved in a harsh environment where aggression and expansion were necessary for survival. Zikatal paused. In some ways, they are not unlike humans. Laura frowned. We're nothing like them. We don't just attack and destroy. Not now, perhaps. But your history contains many examples of stronger human groups conquering weaker ones, and your fiction often glorifies combat and victory. Fiction isn't reality, Laura argued. And humanity has learned from its past mistakes. Has it? Zikatal asked. Or have you simply not been tested on a galactic scale? The screen changed to show a series of battles. In each one, the coalition forces used the same tactics, the same formations. The Vral always seem to anticipate their moves. Our military leaders come from many species, each trained in the finest academies with thousands of years of strategic knowledge, Zikatal explained. Yet the Vral counter every approach. They study patterns and exploit them. That's your problem, Laura said suddenly. You're too predictable. Zikatal nodded. Precisely. The coalition values stability, order, predictability. It has served us well in creating peace among member species. But against the Vral, it is a weakness. And humans are unpredictable. Laura concluded. Extremely so. In your simulation, you rejected the very parameters of the final test. No other species has ever done that. Most choose either surrender or noble destruction. Laura thought about this. So you want humans on the front lines, because we think outside the box. Yes. The Vral cannot predict what they cannot understand. And they do not understand the human mind. They left the secure area and walked through a quiet corridor. There's something I've been wondering, Laura said. If humanity is classified as so dangerous, why did you contact us at all? Why not just leave us alone in our little corner of the galaxy? Zikatal was silent for a moment. 2 reasons. First, your radio signals have been traveling through space for over a century. The Vral would have detected them eventually. And the second reason? Our oldest texts speak of a prophecy, that one day a species would emerge that would either save the galaxy or reduce it to chaos. For millennia, we believed it referred to the Vral. Laura stopped walking. And now you think it might be humans. The possibility exists, Zikatal admitted. Later that day, Laura gathered her team to share what she had learned. So they're afraid of us, but they also need us, Greg said, pacing the room. That gives us leverage. More importantly, it gives us responsibility, Alan added. If this Vral threat is as serious as they claim, we can't just ignore it. Diane looked concerned. But can we trust them? What if they're manipulating us, showing us carefully selected information to get the response they want? That's why we need to see Earth's leaders involved, Laura said. This is too big for just us to decide. But I think we should recommend pursuing this partnership. Even though they classified us as dangerous? Greg asked. Laura smiled. Maybe because they classified us as dangerous. Think about it. They've admitted we have something special, something they need. That puts humanity in a stronger position than if they just saw us as another ordinary species. We should request more information about these Vral, Alan suggested, and about the border regions where they want to place human colonies. And guarantees about technology sharing, Diane added. If we're going to face these Vral, we need to be properly equipped. They spent hours discussing the possibilities and risks. By morning, they had drafted a formal response to present to the council. As Laura prepared for the meeting, she looked out at the stars. Humanity had dreamed of contacting alien life for centuries. They had imagined many scenarios, peaceful exchanges, hostile invasions, distant observations, but no one had predicted this, that humans would be seen as both the most dangerous species and potentially the galaxy's greatest hope. Perhaps being dangerous wasn't entirely bad, not if that danger was directed at threats like the Vral. Perhaps humanity's unique traits could serve a greater purpose in the vast, complex universe they were just beginning to understand. The day of the final meeting with the Coalition Council arrived. The human team had spent a week aboard the alien ship, learning, planning, and preparing their formal response. They had debated long into the night about the right path forward. Laura led her team into the council chamber with confidence. The alien representatives watched them with curious eyes. The room felt different today, less threatening, more respectful. Captain Nelson, the reptile counselor, greeted her. We are ready to hear humanity's response to our proposal. Laura stepped forward. We appreciate the Coalition's offer of partnership. We understand both the opportunity and the responsibility it represents. She paused, looking at each council member. We agree to bring humans to the border regions to help defend against the Vral threat, but we have conditions beyond what we initially discussed. The council members shifted in their seats. Zikatal nodded for her to continue. First, we want a seat on this council. If humans are going to risk their lives, we deserve a voice in Coalition decisions. That is most unusual, the five-eyed alien said. New species typically wait centuries for council representation. But no new species has ever been asked to be your front-line defense immediately upon first contact, Laura countered, the light being flickered. This is true. Second, we want access to education in all Coalition science and technology. not just military applications. If we're going to work together, we need to understand each other. The reptile counselor looked concerned. Given your Category 1 classification, unrestricted technology access would be, if you trust us to fight your war, you should trust us with your knowledge, Laura interrupted. You need what makes humans special, but we need the tools to succeed. The council members exchanged glances. And third, Laura continued, the quarantine of Earth ends immediately. Our ships will have freedom to explore beyond the border regions, with appropriate coalition liaison officers on board if necessary. This caused a stir among the council. The five-eyed alien spoke rapidly in a language the humans couldn't understand. The other counselors responded in kind. Ketal turned to Laura. Your terms are bold, Captain. Some would say too bold for a species just joining the galactic community. Greg stepped forward. With respect, Ambassador, we're not just joining. You're asking us to be your shield against a threat that has defeated you for over a century. That changes the relationship. Alan added. Our research shows that coalition species typically take decades to adapt to new situations. Humans do it in days or weeks. That ability is what you need against the Vrel. Diane finished their united front. Either we're partners in this, with all that implies, or we're not. Humanity won't be both feared and exploited. The council went silent. Then, the reptile counselor made a strange sound, something between a hiss and a laugh. In my 300 years on this council, I have never encountered a species like yours, it said. You prove your dangerous classification with every word, yet also why we need you. The light being pulsed slowly. The prophecy speaks of change, coming from the most unexpected place. Perhaps this is what it meant. The council conferred quietly among themselves. After several tense minutes, Zikatal turned back to the humans. We accept your terms with minor modifications to be negotiated. Humanity will have provisional council representation with full membership after 5 years of successful partnership. Technology sharing will be extensive but monitored, and travel restrictions will be lifted gradually as trust is built. Laura felt a surge of pride. It was more than she had hoped for. We accept these modifications. Then it is settled, the reptile counselor said, rising from its seat. The human coalition partnership begins today. Laura and Zikatal touched palms in the formal coalition greeting that they had learned during their stay. The other council members followed suit with the rest of the human team. As they prepared to return to the horizon to send their report to Earth, Zikatal walked with Laura through the ship's garden one last time. You should know something, Captain, the ambassador said quietly. The Council's acceptance of your terms was not merely due to your negotiating skills. Oh? Laura asked. We have been monitoring the Vrel fleet movements. They have changed course in the past 2 days. Their lead ships are now heading toward your sector of the galaxy. Laura stopped walking. They're coming toward Earth? Yes. We believe they detected your ship's transmissions. They are curious about new species, just as we are, but their curiosity has different purposes. How long do we have? At their current speed, perhaps 2 years before they reach your solar system, Zigtal said, which is why the Council agreed to your terms so readily. We do not have time for traditional coalition caution. Laura absorbed this news. You should have told us this before the meeting. Would it have changed your position? She thought about it. No. But honesty matters between allies. Zikatal's skin color shifted slightly. You are right. This is a lesson the coalition must learn if our partnership is to succeed. We have grown too comfortable with careful half-truths. When they reached the docking bay where the shuttle waited, Laura's team was already aboard. She turned to Zikatal one last time. Ambassador, there's something I've been curious about. In the simulation, when faced with that no-win scenario, what do most coalition species choose? Almost all choose surrender to preserve life, Ziktal replied. A few choose noble destruction. None refuse the parameters themselves. And the Vral? How would they respond? They would fight until destruction, which is why they have been such difficult opponents. Skatal's expression changed. But they would never look for a third option like humans do. They lack your creativity. Laura smiled. Then perhaps that's our greatest weapon. As the shuttle carried them back to the horizon, Laura looked out at the alien ship growing smaller behind them. When she had set out on this mission, she had hoped to discover new worlds, new life. Instead, she had discovered something about humanity itself, their place in a much larger, more complex universe than they had imagined. They had been classified as the galaxy's most dangerous species. But perhaps being dangerous wasn't always bad. Perhaps it was exactly what the galaxy needed when faced with threats like the Vrail. Humanity's unique blend of determination, creativity, and refusal to accept defeat might be their greatest gift to the stars. The horizon waited ahead, ready to carry this news back to Earth. Laura knew that everything would change now. Humanity would never be the same once they learned they weren't alone, and that they had already been labeled the galaxy's most dangerous species. It was time for humans to show the galaxy that dangerous could also mean hope.